Stand back, don't get too close. It's time for another edition of the Kaufman Corner podcast with you, as always, the good doctor, one of the co-founders of Baseball Prospectus, Dr. Rany Jazayerli. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. We've got a number of things to discuss. Arbitration. 6 players avoid it. 2 are going to it. Vinny Pasquantino and Chris Bubic are going to go through arbitration. We'll talk about those numbers. We'll talk about the 6 that did avoid it. Massey, Isbell, Falter, Lynch, Schreiber, and Mears. What does it mean for the Royals? What can they expect from their farm system this year? Is there any help down on the farm in 26? We'll discuss that topic. And the Royals Hall of Fame ballot is out, right? You know what that means? It means people got to make votes. Who belongs in, who doesn't. We're talking about it right now on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
You're listening to the Kaufman Corner podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and a former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. And now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. All
right, thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running here on a Monday night. Usually we're Sunday nights, but a lot of things going on. We're trying to dodge football playoffs and whatnot, so we're dealing with a lot of things here, people. It's like the mound in Bull Durham when they're figuring out candlesticks, live chicken head, that kind of thing. That's what's going on these days. Rany, first of all, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Well, close to spring training, man. 1 month.
I know, less than a month. Like, what is it? February 9th, I think, with the World Baseball Classic.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the folks will be reporting. So yeah, we're creeping up there ever closer. And of course, part of the business that needs to get done are the arbitration cases for the Kansas City Royals. 6 avoid it, 2 are going to arbitration. First of all, let's talk about that. That used to be a real badge of honor among, for like Dayton Moore, was that he never went to arbitration with guys. They always got it settled, right? That was like something they took great pride in. It's not going to happen this time. They're going to go to arbitration with a couple. What do you worried about that? They got to hear the team run them down and all that kind of stuff. We hear that all the time. What's your reaction to a couple of guys going to arbitration?
Well, I'm not worried yet because they haven't gone to arbitration yet. They've exchanged numbers. They could not come to an agreement beforehand, but there's still, I would assume, a strong likelihood that, and this can occur sometimes minutes before an arbitration hearing. They could be in the conference room ready to start, and the agent and the front office guy, they pull each other aside and they work out a number, and the arbitrator got all set up for no reason. So I'm optimistic that the numbers here, I mean, Vinny Pasquantino, we're talking about a $500,000 difference, right? In terms of what he's asking for and the Royals are offering, $4.5 million versus $4 million. For Chris Bubic, it's $1 million, 6.15 versus 5.15. I'm hopeful, at the very least with Vinny, that they will still come to an agreement beforehand. Because if they actually go to a hearing, I'm not going to say it's a bad sign, in part because like you said, Dayton Moore famously did everything he could to avoid ever getting a hearing with a player. But you and I have discussed that Dayton Moore might have been almost too much on the pendulum in terms of coddling his players, giving them, treating them so much like family. Maybe sometimes, what you think about Alberto Mondesi and how they didn't force him to earn what his playing time or earn a career really. maybe a little bit more hard-headed business sense isn't a bad thing, but I still think going to arbitration with Vinny, especially a core guy who's under contract for 3 more years, over $500,000, would be a foolish use of time, resources, and taking a risk of alienating, a player for no reason whatsoever.
Just for the record, clear. For the record, Vinny is 12.5%. There's a 12. The difference, 500,000, is 12.5% of what the Royals offers. I'm taking the low offer, so
right.
The Royals offer, and then on the 1 million,
that's probably about 18%.
Yeah, it's gonna be 18-19% on that one. So, I think a couple of things. Yeah, 19.4, so almost 20% on that offer. So that one's the bigger one. The bigger gap is with Bubic. But I think two things that are of note. One, if you're going to sign another player to a long-term deal, it's Vinny Pasquantino, and maybe this is a formality that's just leading into him getting a multi-year deal. And this is irrelevant. They're just, each side has to go ahead and file the steps like it's that's where they're, just in case they're not going to get the deal done. But hopefully both sides are working towards getting an extension done. And then with Chris Bubic, they're talking about trading him. I mean, so on that one, it's going to be somebody else's problem.
Right.
So I do think that's an element of what could be a play here, just that they're not going to, they don't think this is going to be heard, like you said, at all because of what they're working on there. The other thing I'd say, Dayton Moore usually avoided it for years until, like I said, at the very end.
I think Brady Singer. Brady Singer, I think.
No, Brandon Maurer. It was one of
the. Brandon Maurer was that was a famous outlier, but no one cared about that. But I think Brady Singer was actually the first real player.
But he didn't get it done with Maurer in his 6 ERA, and he posted a 9 ERA. And I think the Royals won on that one.
Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, Singer actually was the year after Dayton Moore was fired. I believe that was actually JJ. So that actually just kind of emphasizes the difference between.
There might have been more that came after Maurer, but I think that was his name, right? The reliever that
Brandon Maurer
with the Padres. But the way Dayton usually avoided it was they'd split the difference. And so in this case, if I think if I'm the Royals, I'm like, all right, we take 4.25 and let's avoid this nonsense.
Well, I don't understand when it's a difference this small, just find a way to make the $500,000 incentive based. I mean, that's the other option. Games play. If Vinny plays 150 games, he gets the 500,000. I mean, if you're the Royals,
can you do that on contracts?
I absolutely, I believe you can. I mean, you can negotiate whatever you want as long as it is the kind of incentives that are permissible in baseball. Unlike football, where you can have incentives for sacks, right? So Chris Jones goes out there and gets $1 million for sacking a player. In baseball, all incentives, no matter it's an arbitration contract or a free agent contract, whatever, they have to be playing time or awards based only. You cannot have it stats based. You never see a guy get $1 million bonus for hitting 30 home runs. It's games played. Actually, with closers, they found a way. They used games finished instead, because you can't use saves. So games finished is a common incentive-based contract for a guy who's signing as a closer. But the point is, if you knew right now Vinny Pasquantino was going to play 150 games in 2026, if you're the Royals, I think you'd happily pay him the extra $500,000 because almost certainly he's being productive if he's being healthy.
Right.
So that's the other option here. If you can't reach a midpoint, and then just make it incentive-based.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's make it playing time. What would you put? What's fair for $500,000 for Vinny Pasquantino?
I mean, you could easily do $100,000 for each of 110, 120, 130, 140, 150 games played. All right. That's a common way they do it. Right. You just have a ladder. So it's not one game is going to potentially be $500,000.
That's the easier one. Now,
that's
give me what you're going to do for Bubic.
Yeah. Bubic. Well, I mean, to me, these are two very different cases because, like you said, Bubic is not best case scenario. It seems, I think everyone's written off the idea that he'd sign a long-term contract with the Royals. So he's either around for 1 year or he's trade bait anyway. So I could see them being a little bit more hard-headed with Bubic. I wouldn't be as as annoyed if the Royals take Bubic to a hearing as I would be with Pasquantino. But even with him, I think, I mean, you absolutely could build. I mean, frankly, with Bubic, given the fact that last season ended with an injury, he might, make more sense to make his incentive based, where you put it in based on games started or innings pitched. So like he starts earning money if he gets to 100 innings, and he maxes out the million once he gets to like 160 innings or something like that. The question is, would he take that? But to me, it seems like a very win-win situation for both teams, for both sides. If you allow the player to make exactly what he's asking for without going to a hearing, he just has to stay healthy. And if he stays healthy for the full season, the other option, you can actually tie it to like time on the injured list. So if Chris Bubic does not go on the IL all season, he makes the full $1 million, the extra $1 million incentive. So there are many ways to structure it, but to me, it's a no-brainer. That's the easiest way to do this. That avoids acrimony between both sides.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get it done. I think that's always best for everybody involved. Michael Massey, $1.6 million. Kyle Isbell, $2.7 million. Bailey Falter, $3.6 million. Daniel Lynch, a little over $1 million. John Schreiber, 3.7. Nick Mears, 1.9. All those numbers, they're in what we expected. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out where those things are going to be, where the ballpark where these guys are going to be. But any of them you got an issue with?
I mean,
the one that jumps at you is obviously the 3.6
for Bailey Falter, right? And the fact, I mean, it's not guaranteed yet. Although I think at this point, even if they release them tomorrow, they're on the hook for like a sixth of it. I want to say they changed the rules in the new CBA, so I don't want to don't quote me on that. But the point is, like, the Royals had an option. They could have simply released him rather than pay him $3.6 million. So on some level, I suppose this is a good sign that the Royals and their current, pitching regime believes in Bailey Falter enough that they're willing to pay $3.6 million to a guy who had, was terrible once he joined the Royals and right now seems to be, his role with the team seems to be undefined. So they must clearly like something about him still, that they're willing to agree to this money without just playing hardball and being like, I mean, because teams always have the option of like, here's a number. If you don't sign for this, we will release you. And of course, if you're a young, guy who's pre-arbitration, you'll happily take that threat because you'd love to be on the market early. But in Bailey Falter's case, he's not getting $3.6 million potentially from any other team. So the Royals clearly like something about him. And I'm very curious to see how it goes with him this year, because I have no idea what their plan is for him at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just why we continue to think trade has to be coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Real quick before we break, Alex Bregman signs with the Cubs, so the Red Sox are now officially without Alex Bregman, although I think they've been planning on that for a while. The Cubs now have maybe some more depth someplace. If you want to dream a dream, I know some people have been trying to cook up some deals like, okay, let's turn to the Cubs. Anything off what we've seen here of late come down, we finally got one of the bigger names to come off the board, but anything that makes you think something's coming for the Royals or no?
I don't think that Bregman signing specifically has much of an impact. I will say this is a bit of a sore spot for me when the Cubs signed him and you started hearing people talk about, well, what are they going to do with Matt Shaw and Nico Hoerner, and maybe they'll trade Nico Hoerner. I don't like hearing Nico Hoerner trade talk, because that's a sore spot for me, because 6 years ago, I am absolutely convinced when the Cubs were sniffing around for Whit Merrifield, and it was reported everywhere that the Cubs had an interest in Whit Merrifield to play second base, and they had what are they going to offer? This is Whit Merrifield had like 3 years of club control still at that point. He'd already signed a long-term extension. He was at his peak, but it was unlikely to get better for a team that had just lost 200 games over the previous 2 seasons. And while I have not heard it confirmed, it is widely believed that Nico Hoerner would have been the potential centerpiece of a trade for Whit Merrifield. And I advocated for it at the time. I know a lot of smart people, analysts who are not Royals fans, but thought that that made sense, that Nico Hoerner was somebody the Royals could get. But we know what Dayton Moore's modus operandi was. He loves his players. He doesn't want to trade his players, even if it makes complete, economic, financial, baseball sense to make a transaction. And I've tried to keep it out of my mind, but I have on more than one occasion I've looked at, man, if they had made that trade, Nico Horner was the Royals' second baseman. I mean, Nico Horner was a 6-win player last year because he's a good hitter and an exceptional defender. He's won 2 of the last 3 National League Gold Gloves at second base. A 300 hitter, not much pop, but like extreme contact guy. Like you put him on the 2025 Royals. They make the playoffs. They have the best infield in their history, probably, with Miguel Garcia, Bobby Witt, Nico Horner, and Vinny Pasquantino. And it's just another reminder that for all of his strengths, Dayton Moore had a huge blind spot when it came to thinking long-term for what was the best interest of the franchise over the best interest of the players. And, you know, the silver lining here is JJ Piccolo does not think that way. Freddie Fermin is not still the backup in Kansas City, and the Royals have 2 young pitchers, and the San Diego Padres are desperately trying to fill out their rotation right now. So it's just, you know, a reminder things used to be different, and I'm glad they have changed.
GMDM, the gift that keeps on giving. That's one of the reactions, Cottman's reaction to it. Yeah, not necessarily what you want to hear if you're a Royals fan. Listen, we got a lot to get to. We want to talk about the farm system, what kind of help could be coming out of the farm system. We'll do it right after you hear from our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's start talking about the farm system. We know that Carter Jensen, who is technically still a prospect because he hasn't used up his rookie status, is going to count. That's where the farm is going to help from what the consensus rule is on when you're farm help and not. We're really looking beyond that. We know Carter Jensen's a big part of the plan. So, do you have any expectations whatsoever that we're going to see some help out of the farm this year?
Well, let's compare it to this past season that just finished. Let's talk about how much help they got from the farm system in 2025. So the every rookie that played for the Royals in 2025 combined for 4.7 wins above replacement. More than 3/4 of that was Noah Cameron. He alone was 3.8. Every other rookie combined for under 1 win. All right. So, like, if Carter Jensen has a really good rookie year and the Royals get almost nothing from anyone else, won't be much different than last year. Do you know who the most valuable rookie hitter was for the Royals this past season?
Well, Carter Jensen probably.
It was Carter Jensen.
Yeah.
Exactly. And 20 games or whatever, he was worth 0.8 wins. I mean, the hitters as a whole were below replacement value because Jack Caglione put up a big stinker. He was negative 1.3. But Cameron was the only player worth 1 win, only rookie with 1 win. Carter Jensen was the second most valuable rookie at any pitcher or hitter. I mean, tied for third would be Steven Cruz and Luinder Avila, right? And Luinder Avila is still eligible for this coming year as well. So when we talk about the expectations for 2026, I think it's worth keeping in mind that, like, most teams, you'd love to get like 10 wins from rookies, but that's uncommon. What the Royals had last year, you have one good rookie performance and then a couple of decent contributors, and that's par for the course. And I think that's what we're looking at, because I think Carter Jensen could be worth mean, 3.8 is a tall order to expect that. He's certainly capable of it. But if he's a 2.5, 3-win player playing mostly every day, I think I would take that, happily. And then the question is, you're hoping somebody surprises, right? Noah Cameron wasn't exactly a surprise, like in the sense that we thought he was likely to appear in the majors, but obviously his performance was a surprise. With the coming season, I think anybody other than Carter Jensen getting a ton of playing time at all would be kind of a surprise. I mean, of the top 13 Royals prospects, according to MLB.com right now, only 3 of them have even reached Double A. Right, Carter Jensen, it's Ben Kuderna, and Steven Zobak, I believe. So like, they're just the farm system is making strides, but all of that new talent is still new and it's still an A ball, and you're not seeing it this year. So like, your hope is that one of Kuderna or Zobak, ends up coming up maybe in the bullpen, ideally in the bullpen, because if you're putting him in the rotation, then you've probably had 3 or 4 injuries, but somebody excels in the bullpen. I still think Luinder Avila is probably going to be the most valuable of all of these guys in 2026. So I'm hoping you get a good rookie performance in the bullpen, 1 or 2 guys, and then Carter Jensen. And then, maybe you get a surprise late in the year. Maybe Blake Mitchell comes up in September or August. I can't imagine sooner than that. Maybe Carson Roccaforte makes an appearance. Like if Kyle Isbell gets hurt or is not playing well, maybe they try him in center field. But those are contingencies. Those are not things I am expecting by any means.
Yeah. I listen, I think there are, number one, let's point this out. The farm system could help if they move farm system for, proven big league talent.
Right, exactly.
So there's that option. The spirit of what we're talking about is somebody actually coming up and playing for the Royals and not just being a trade chip. Blake Mitchell would be the guy that you would think that would maybe be able to bring back a lot in a trade. But do you give any hope for a Gavin Cross turnaround? Do you get, like where you mentioned Ben Kuderna, but like where in what way does he factor in
as a reliever? Right. I mean, all of these guys, you see Brad Keller, like getting, being the closer for the Cubs and getting 22 million from the Phillies after, 7 frustrating seasons as a starter. Like, I'm not giving up on any pitcher until they've gone to the bullpen. And Kuderna, I wouldn't move him long-term there right now, because the upside is still that he could be an number 3 starter, and that's probably more valuable. But he definitely has the kind of repertoire where if it doesn't work out for him in the rotation, he goes in short stints. You add 2 miles an hour to his fastball, and I think you've got a major league pitcher. I don't think you need that for 2026. I think the Royals have a lot of they have the luxury of not needing to do that. We've talked about the Royals moving pitchers into roles that are not best for them long term, because they just could not fill out an entire pitching staff, and I don't think that's the case this year. But Kuderna could be that guy. Zobak, if he can't stay healthy, they may have to move him to the bullpen just for health reasons. And I think also he could be a useful guy. But we're talking about guys who might give you 45, 50 innings. Those are not going to move the needle on a season-long basis.
Let me ask you, why haven't they already moved Kuderna? I mean, or maybe they have, like with the depth that they've got up top, like there's no reason other than if you want him working on all his pitches and you just want to give him the workload to continue to try to refine what he's got. But do you see numbers at 22 years old in AA and AAA last year that you go, yeah, starter?
Yeah, I mean, I will say last year in AA was the first time he actually looked like he might have a future as a starting pitcher. And then he completely crapped the bed in AAA. I mean, he was awful in AAA in 4 games, but like 11 innings, 17 walks.
17 walks just says that's a
right.
guy who knows I can't get these guys out.
Right. Either was a mechanical issue. I mean, 17 walks, 11 innings tells me something's gone wrong. You can't throw strikes. Like that's,
yeah.
I'm hoping that's something that's a mechanical flaw they can fix quickly. But that performance definitely, in my mind, accelerates the need to consider him moving to the bullpen, because if he's struggling to throw strikes, either because his stuff doesn't play at that level or because, he's trying to figure out how to throw 4 different pitches and he should just focus on his 2 best pitches and just air it out. Either way, this could very well be the year we see him move to the bullpen. I mean, here's a better example than Brad Keller, maybe more recent. Jonathan Bolin was a second-round pick, kind of like Kuderna, and was kind of a pitchability guy when they drafted him. His stuff ticked up in after he was drafted, and you started hearing talk about him being a legitimate prospect as a starter, but it never really worked out for him. The minute he moved to the bullpen, he was lights out in Omaha, came up and had success in the majors, and the Phillies were interested in acquiring him and, making him a long-term part of their bullpen. So, in retrospect, they should have moved Jonathan Bolin to the bullpen like 3 years before they did. So I'm kind of with you in the sense that, like, fine, Kuderna can go into spring training in the rotation, and you slate him for AA or for AAA. But if he doesn't show success like right out of the chute, it might be time to just cut bait and just move him to the bullpen and accelerate his development that way, because you're just wasting time otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, I give you the name of Eric Sarantola.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, power arm, high strikeout numbers. Like, to me, those are the type of guys that, okay, somebody goes down, you bring him up, and, he's either going to sink or swim. But he's got the kind of strikeout to innings that looks like he could be something. Relievers can come along late in their career. I mean, there are a couple of names, but like the names that you like, Blake Mitchell, you want to get excited about. Carson Rocafort is probably still a year away. I mean, that's a name that you and I have kicked around as, on our prospect list when we did our prospect draft. That was there. You mentioned Kuderna as a reliever, but like when we look through this, like when I'm like, okay, who's going to help? I mean, didn't you come away going, I mean, the excitement around the team is Churio and Shields, and it's the young Latin shortstops. It's like there really is a void here, and that's where I come back around when I look at this and go, okay, I really don't see the help. Number one, you see why they did go for all that pitching at the end of the year, but I also think that maybe the deal that they need to make is just taking back prospects, right? To thicken up this system, because I mean, I think they do have duplication. Is there a spot where you go, this guy goes down, I don't know what they do in season? Like, we know there's you don't love any of the second basemen, but you've got plenty of them.
Right.
You can play out there.
I mean, the easy answer is, outfield, because
center field
even if nobody goes down, I'm worried about the outfield. So I don't know what they would do if we have to get
catcher. They're fine. First base, they can make it work. They obviously would just move,
right?
Assuming he's still
options.
Hitting. Jack Caglione up. Salvador Perez can play over there. Shortstop, you can move Michael Garcia over. Third base, what's the backup plan for third base?
It's probably one of the minor league free agents that they've signed, right? Like that is a concern. Like, if either Garcia or Witt goes down for, more than a few games, it's a problem. I mean, Nick Lofton is probably right now. I mean, there's a reason why he still projects to be on the major league roster, and he's a better option than anything else they've got. Second base, like you said, there are a lot of options there, and this is why I won't write off the potential for, I mentioned Carson Rocafort in center or Javier Vaz at second base to have an impact in 2026, just because one or two guys get hurt and they may actually be the next man up. They may be the best player available. But there's no question that there is a void at the top of the farm, or the top of the minor leagues. I don't want to say top of the farm system. They have some good prospects, but they're all in the low minors. So the high minors needs depth. You could, a Bubic trade would definitely replenish that. But if you're playing to win in 2026 and you have a hole in your roster, which the Royals still do in the outfield, it would be a tough sell to take one of your big chips and say, we're going to trade for a future guy when we're right on the cusp. We're right in that mid-80s win projection where 2 or 3 extra wins could have the most impact on a playoff potential.
Shame on you, Rany. Aren't you an analytics guy? Like, you're not selling, you're just reading the numbers, right? So like I object to the premise of what you're talking about, right? Like if you because if you take prospects, you've already exhausted the ability. You've looked at it, you cannot find the piece you need, right? If you can't trade
Bubic and get an outfielder that makes your team better, yes, I'm not averse to it. I'm just saying that, like, I think the priority, and I think that's why he hasn't been moved, frankly, because they're trying, they're trying to make a 3-way trade if that's what it takes to get an outfielder from a team that doesn't need maybe Chris Bubic, but needs prospects and get a third team involved. But if that trade is not there to be made, and you go into spring training and all your pitchers are healthy, and it's like, if we don't trade Chris Bubic, we're sending Ryan Bergert or Stephen Kolek down, even though they're ready, then yeah, at that point I would say absolutely see what the best deal you can make it for prospects, because you'd rather have that value than not have anything at all in 6 months when Bubic is a free agent.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the concept of, here's what we're going to do. Like, we want to get an outfielder, but if you can't get an outfielder, don't you get the sense that the way this team is constructed that they need to move on from Bubic one way or the other?
Well, I was going to say,
in the near future, they need to pivot. Like, I'm fine with if he's there, but explain to me, like, I mean, I don't know. You've got options, obviously, with Kolek and Bergert, but I mean, they're not going to be thrilled with the way they pitched. Right. But I mean, that is part of the Rays always had another guy to bring up. I mean, that's, to me, what they're doing. They're getting the depth that the Rays always had in their starting pitching. But
no, I agree. The more I looked over the roster, every time we do this exercise, it's not so much that the Royals like have to move Bubic, but I'm more and more convinced that they will. Like, it's going to happen. The only reason not to is, again, if the health of the 7 or 8 guys that could be in that rotation is not, there's not something they're comfortable with. I still need to see Ryan Bergert on a mound throwing at 100% without his elbow barking, because like the forearm tightness that ended his season prematurely last year has me very, very nervous. And like, I would put the odds that he undergoes Tommy John, like something pops in his elbow in March, because March is the most common month for Tommy John surgery. Like, the odds of that got to be at least 1 in 3, something like that. So like, if they're legitimately worried he's not healthy, and one other pitcher, I mean, of course, it could be Bubic himself who's not healthy, and that's why they can't trade him. But I think there's enough interest in Chris Bubic that I think we can assume his health is not. It's not it's a factor, but it's not something that's going to make it impossible to trade him. But let's say Seth Lugo's back is still, tight, and we, the Royals know this and we don't. Like, there would be reasons not to make the move. But if you feel like these guys are healthy, I don't see any reason why you would keep Bubic around. If you don't expect to sign him in a year, he has significant trade value, and whether you can make your team better on the field in 2026 or better in the future, that's still better than having extra pitching that you can't utilize and then losing him to free agency in a year.
Yeah, they're in kind of it's a tricky spot right here. I mean, I'll give credit. I like where they are going in, and if they have Chris Bubic, I mean, maybe that's the better plan, is to just get into the season and get him going and show he's healthy, and not even a deadline deal, just like get going with him. Hopefully Bergert comes out, he's fine. Kolek comes out, they're fine. You've got the depth. They're fine down in the minor leagues. They're pitching well. And then you go, okay, listen, here it is. Proof of
it doesn't even have to be into the season. It could be March 15th. In fact, I was saying, I think I said at the end of the last year that I expect him to be traded in March, after he's taken the mound, proven he's healthy, and after the Royals are convinced that the rest of their pitching staff is that they don't actually need him anymore. So, and especially if you do end up trading him for prospects, that's a move that's easy to make at any time, right? Because prospects are currency, prospects are inventory. A team that needs a pitcher, trading a prospect in AA, even if you're a team that's trying to contend, you're not upsetting the composition of your major league roster that you're hoping will go to the playoffs by trading a prospect in AA. Whereas trying to trade like an outfielder, that's obviously the Royals are looking for a major league ready outfielder, that's much trickier to pull off. But I could absolutely see them not doing anything, and then March 15th we hear that Bubic has been traded for prospects.
Yeah, I can see it. Something's coming. I agree with you. They've still got some more tweaking to do, and I think they'll get it done. sooner rather than later. The Royals Hall of Fame ballot is out. Yours truly here. I have a vote. How about that? We'll talk about who's on the ballot, who belongs, who doesn't, after you hear from our friends at Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait. Get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222. Or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's talk about the Royals Hall of Fame ballot, if you are so inclined, Rany.
I don't know. I feel like taking my ball and going home. It's one of my most bitter disappointments in doing this for 30 years that I do not have a ballot and you do. Like,
well, there's not many of us that actually have one in the media.
I'm not saying it's a common thing. It's a rare honor. I'm just saying I'm bitter that I don't have that honor. So if anyone's listening who has the ability to get me a ballot next year, I'm just saying. I'm ready for it.
Okay. Good to know. There it is. Rany is
making his impassioned plea to get a Royals Hall of Fame ballot.
Okay. If people don't know the list, I think you can vote for up to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the list of who is on the ballot this year. The returnees are Carlos Beltran, Billy Butler, Wade Davis. I don't know if Alcides Escobar is a returnee or not. I can't remember.
No, I believe he is a new.
He's new. Okay, so Kelvin Herrera is a returnee. Joaquim Soria and Yordano Ventura were all on last year. Newcomers to the ballot: Lorenzo Cain, Alcides Escobar, and Greg Holland are the newcomers. So the list just in total: Carlos Beltran, Billy Butler, Lorenzo Cain, Wade Davis, Alcides Escobar, Kelvin Herrera, Greg Holland, Joaquim Soria, and Yordano Ventura. Who are you voting yes on?
So, I mean, to me, there are two very obvious people to vote for. Carlos Beltran and Lorenzo Cain. Do you know which player had the better career as a member of the Kansas City Royals by wins above replacement, let's say?
I'm sure everyone's going to race to Lorenzo Cain, but the fact that you're asking that question makes me think it's probably Carlos Beltran.
I mean, it's kind of a trick question. It's basically a tie. I mean, it's around a year. Beltran's at, I think, 24.8. Cain is 24.6. They are collectively the 13th and 15th best players in Royals history by wins above replacement. Again, very ballpark.
Can I tell you that I did vote for again this year, Carlos Beltran, and I think it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous that he is not being voted for. I'd like to know,
how did he not get in last year? I don't know.
I don't know. I do not know.
Gordon got in with like 97. I think they announced 97.8% of the vote. I just don't. I mean, the only thing I can think of. Well, I mean, two things. If somebody is holding a grudge against him because of his implication in the garbage can scandal that didn't happen in Kansas City, and can we all move on from that? Like, I don't know. If somebody's cheating, but because they're trying too hard to win, I guess I can't hold that against them too much. But also, yeah, he played for the Royals when the team sucked for the most part. That's not his fault, right? Like, he was a generational talent. Can we get him into the Royals Hall of Fame before he gets into the actual Hall of Fame? Because, like, if he goes into the Major League Hall of Fame and he started his career and played a good chunk, maybe, okay, he played more with the Mets than the Royals, but like a third of his career was with Kansas City and somehow can't get into the Royals Hall of Fame. The same Royals Hall of Fame that has like Cookie Rojas in it. No offense to Cookie, but like the standard for the Royals Hall of Fame is a wee bit lower than the Major League Hall of Fame. Carlos Beltran absolutely should be in. Lorenzo Cain, I think, will absolutely get in this year. That one, I have no doubt he'll get a higher percentage of the votes because recency bias and because he won a World Series. And I'm fine with that. But like Lorenzo Cain is the only person I'm certain will get in, but Carlos Beltran absolutely gets my vote.
Yeah, Beltran's in. Lorenzo Cain should be in. Billy Butler was a tough one. I think we've talked about this before.
I can't remember last year if I came down on yes or no. Like every year I look at it new and it's like, he's the toughest decision. I believe you can't tell the story of the Royals, that 2014, 2015 team, even if he wasn't on the 2015 team. I don't think you can tell the story of the Royals without Billy Butler. He was an elite hitter for 5 seasons. I believe in honoring your past, honoring your players. The whole point of a Hall of Fame is to honor guys. So I don't like having unrealistically high standards. So I think I put him in, but I can see an argument both ways.
I did not.
That's probably where we were last year, but I completely respect that. I think he's right on the bubble.
So Beltran, I was a yes. Butler, I was a no. Lorenzo Cain, I was a yes, and I think he will go in. Not quite as unanimously as Alex Gordon, not quite as high a percentage, but I think he'll definitely go in the first time. Wade Davis, where are you? He's back on the ballot. My vote was the same.
So let me take a step back. After Cain and Beltran, who, based on again wins above replacement, just using as a general tool here, who has the most wins above replacement of any player on this ballot as a member of the Royals?
As a member of the Royals, I mean, off longevity, probably maybe Alcides Escobar.
Nope, it's Joakim Soria.
Okay,
it's not particularly close.
So you're not taking a step back; you're taking a step forward because he was like 5 players away.
Well, I'm just no. I'm not saying I'm voting. I'm just saying I'm give you an idea because we're talking about Wade Davis. I think it's just important to note that like Joakim Soria had objectively a better career with the Royals, and I do think people really sleep on Joakim Soria because he was amazing for 4 years. But they were the first 4 years of Dayton Moore's tenure before the Royals were actually good. And those 4 years, he was like as valuable as Wade Davis's entire career with the Royals. And then he did pitch 5 years total and then came back and pitched 2 more years. So like you could make a case for Soria. He's right on the bubble for me. He's a reliever, didn't have any postseason moments. Wade Davis obviously had tons of postseason moments, but he was a good player. He was a serviceable player for 3 seasons as a Royal. He pitched for 5 years. The first one he was a starter with an ERA over 5. The 5th season, he came back years later and was done. He had nothing left. So if you vote for Wade Davis, you're basically voting for him for 3 seasons.
So,
right.
So I'm a yes on Wade Davis, and I'm a yes because those 3 seasons were as dominant as it gets. And I'll just tell you, I'm a yes on Greg Holland because I also think the Royals Hall of Fame, and Holland's an easier yes than Wade Davis. I knew I was going to vote yes on Holland last year when I decided, and Wade Davis was a grinder as to whether or not I was going to say yes or no. But I'm with you. But I also think the Hall of Fame should also tell the history of your franchise and the history of that team. Like Kelvin Herrera was never really that great at the back end, the closer. But Greg Holland was a dominant closer. Wade Davis was a dominant closer. Wade Davis was kind of the precursor to the modern fireman, that Lucas Herceg is holding down. The Royals, I don't think win the World Series without Wade Davis, right? So I get that the longevity is not there. There are guys that, like Alex Gordon's dominance in any 1 or 2 or 3 years is not good enough. It's the longevity that gets Alex Gordon there. And I think you need the mix of all of it. I think all of it tells the story. Alex Gordon was very good year in, year out. He was incredible defensively. He was kind of up and down offensively. But, I definitely thought he goes in. Like, first of all, I'm not a guy who's going to wait 3 years and then vote yes. You're either in or not. And so my decision is all about, like, when you get up on the ballot, like, if I vote yes, you're going to be yes. I've done my homework. I know what it is. I stay there. I don't know what this idea of a guy getting in on his 3rd or 4th try is. Doesn't make sense to me. Now, I will say this. I will vote no on something because there's a max of 5. So if others come along that I think are better than you, then I will bump you down, because that's the purpose of the rules. You should vote yes, unless you should not line up and be like, well, I'm going to keep voting yes on Greg Holland, and I won't vote yes on, say, Eric Hosmer, who's going to come up next year, because I've got to get Greg Holland in first, right? Like if I think Hosmer belongs over whoever's fifth on my list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I'm voting. Last year, I think I only had 3 yes votes. And I had 4, excuse me, Gordon got in. And I got 3 carryovers this year that didn't get in. Or actually, I had 5 because Johnny Damon fell off, and I had Johnny Damon as a yes. Right. He's not on the ballot anymore. So I did have 5. But if we've got a stretch here where I have 5 guys I voted yes for that I might knock somebody off if somebody comes in that I think's better. Because that to me is the structure of the ballot. That's the system is built to take care of it for you. And that's my frustration. Nothing is worse than the NFL voters who consistently have this line. They are projecting out how many years they've got a guy, and they're like, well, I don't need to vote yes on this guy because he's got 5 years. So Will Shields sits for 3 years because I'm backed up and I put somebody else in over Randall McDaniel who should have got in, and I got to get Randall McDaniel in before I get Will Shields. Will Shields should have been walked into the first time in the NFL Hall of Fame. But they do this manipulation of, we have this many spots where we can get it. It needs to be you vote for everyone that you think is worthy of it. If there's more worthy of it than the number you can vote, then you pick your top 5. And that's what that's why they have that system, is it takes care of itself. And if you never crack the top 5, then you weren't good enough.
See, I'm frustrated that there is a maximum of 5. Just like I was frustrated, I'm still frustrated for years that the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame has a maximum of 10.
There has to be a max. There has to be a max.
It doesn't have to be a max.
There has to be. It's already.
There should be a simple up or down vote. And here's the reason why.
Oh.
Because if you don't get people in quickly enough, you end up with a backlog, and then
what I'm talking about.
But my point is, then you might have multiple eligible, worthy candidates, and none of them get in because everybody's voting for different.
They didn't get the votes. They don't. It's just like you don't keep voting forever. That's the problem. Is
that's a separate thing. I agree that there should be a lot. I think the Royals are actually, you're limited to being on the ballot 5 times, which is a lot better than 15 or 10 like the baseball.
And then they'll double back, and they've even done it like Major League Baseball. And okay, now we've got a veterans committee because we've got some guys that we've grown to really like over the last 10 years, and we want to go ahead and put them in, which is utter bullshit. I'm going to tell you that right now. All of them, it's just crap.
95% of the time, you're right. I will say that you have to account for the fact that sometimes standards evolve, or we have better information about players than we did when they were on the ballot. And I still think about someone like Lou Whitaker in the Baseball Hall of Fame. If Lou Whitaker came on the writers' ballot today, he'd be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I have no doubt. But the voters of that time had no inkling of the value of positional value of OBP. There are so many different ways. Lou Whitaker, it's an absolute farce that he's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And of course, the guys who vote on the Veterans Hall, the Veterans Committee that could put him in, are all a bunch of old geezers for the most part. Some of the ex-players in particular. I don't even think he was on the ballot this year. The people making those decisions have no concept of how to evaluate players. This is the same committee that put Harold Baines in the Hall of Fame because Tony La Russa, has a big personality and probably bully people in the room to vote for his guy. So I don't mind the fact that sometimes you have to go back and reevaluate. I mean, the Royals, for decades forgot about Cedric Callis, and and frankly, they kind of forgot about John Schuerholz too. And they rectified that 2 years ago. We talked about that on this show and kind of cleared the decks of some of the oversights that they had in the past. So I don't mind that. But my point is I worry, especially with Hosmer and Moustakas getting on the ballot next year, that we may be in a position where there's 7 or 8 guys that we would vote for, but unless we can all agree which ones are worthy, if you have to get 75% of people to vote for you and everybody's getting 60% of the vote because nobody can agree on which 5 should go in first, that's my worry. The easiest way to solve that is for people to, vote for Carlos Beltran this year. There's no reason why Carlos Beltran should be on the ballot at all this year, let alone next year. So Beltran and Kane, to me, go in. Wade Davis, so maybe this is just the Davis rule because you brought up the Football Hall of Fame. To me, the ultimate example of peak peak value getting a guy into the Hall of Fame is
Terrell
Terrell Davis.
Yeah.
Right. Who played 7 years, was, barely upright for 3 of them. He got into the Football Hall of Fame on 4 years. I can't even imagine something like that in baseball. Like, it just, guys play 15 years and make 8 All-Star games and can't get into the Baseball Hall of Fame. But Terrell Davis sails in because he was so dominant for, a 4 years, really a 2-year stretch. If that's the argument for Wade Davis, I can buy it. And I will say this, it's not just because you can't tell the story of the Royals without like Wade Davis. The story of those 2014, 2015 Royals was 2 things. The most incredible outfield defense we've ever seen, and maybe the greatest bullpen in the history of baseball, right? That's what got 2 teams that, without those 2 things, were fairly average, got them to 2 pennants in a World Series. And the fact that the bullpen was not just a story during the regular season, but as I've written many times with a lot of joy, their record in the postseason, late in games, was impeccable. Doesn't do what they did justice. They never lost a game in the postseason where they were leading after 6 innings or tied after 6 innings. That is absurd. Like, there's a part of me that wants to put Herrera, Davis, and Holland all in the Royals Hall of Fame, because I mean, if you evaluate them analytically, Holland probably had the best career of the 3 as a Royal. Herrera is right behind him, and I don't want to like minimize his contributions. Davis had the weakest statistical argument, but was the most dominant and had by far the best postseason record. We're just looking at regular season stats. By postseason stats, 25 innings, he allowed, I think, 1 earned run in 2 postseasons. So I would be fine with voting for all 3 of them. But again, if you're limited to 5, it makes it difficult. So I would probably vote for Holland and Davis, as well as Beltran and Kane. And then the 5th spot, to me, the most difficult one, you talk about the argument of longevity versus peak. What do you do with Alcides Escobar?
Is it no?
He's a no for you. Okay.
No.
I respect that. Again, if Cookie Rojas is the standard, then Escobar should be in. But I'm inclined to say Cookie Rojas is just an outlier, kind of a mistake. The best comp would be Freddie Patek. But Freddie Patek was a better player than Alcides Escobar. And Escobar was the starting shortstop for the Royals for 8 seasons, which is nothing to sneeze at. But Freddie Patek was the starter for like 10 or 11 and was a better player.
Freddie was not only the better player, but Freddie was also, within his era and what they asked him to do, he was better at it. Alcides Escobar was in an era where they said get on base, and he swung at everything. Right. Freddie Patek, you're supposed to take the bat off your shoulder, but you're supposed to steal bases, and he did at an elite level. That's what they wanted him to do. And so, yeah, I'm with you. Escobar is a no. And your case about Joakim Soria, I agree. Joakim Soria is in. So I
think that's my ballot. I think it's Herrera, Davis, and Soria, along with Beltran.
Not Holland?
Sorry, Holland, Davis. I'm sorry, my mistake. Now, Herrera, if I could vote for more than 5, I think I would vote for Kelvin Herrera. But
wait a minute, because here's mine. I think mine is what yours is. Mine are yes on Carlos Beltran, Lorenzo Cain, Greg Holland, Wade Davis, Greg Holland, and Joakim Soria.
Yes. We have the same 5 this year.
Okay.
Yeah. I will say this: Billy Butler would be my 6th. I would vote for Billy Butler, but I can't. And but he's on the bubble, and I respect. Like, I totally understand if you don't feel like he should be in.
It was really, really hard. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I spent hours on Billy Butler. I really did. But he was an absolute non-entity on defense. Yeah. In fact, a negative on defense. And yeah, it was just, it was tough. I mean, it was really tough. Butler was tough. You know who else was really tough for me in the past? Al Fitzmaurice was really difficult. I mean, that was a tough one for me. Fitz, I've always said, and Butler may replace him. I'll now say Fitz is the toughest pitcher I've ever said no to, and Billy Butler is probably the toughest hitter I've ever said no to.
There's always going to be that somebody has to be the last player out, right? And so you have to draw the line somewhere out. Or first player, for the best player not in the Hall, right? And the best player not in the Hall. Billy Butler's not a bad representative of that, because he, in some ways, he had some great features about him, but he also had some glaring weaknesses that you can point to and say this is why he's not in the Hall of Fame. To me, the interesting question is like how many members of the 2015 Royals, the world champion 2015 Royals, end up in the World Hall of Fame, right? Because if you look at the 85 team, all right, the 85 team obviously had George Brett, Frank White, Willie Wilson, Al McRae. That's 4. You had Saberhagen and Gubicza and Quisenberry. That's 7 guys. And I'm not counting Dennis Leonard, who was active but missed the whole season. Larry Jura, I think, actually pitched a couple innings that year and then retired. They don't really count. They were not core members of that team by any means. But still, 7 members of the 85 Royals are in the World Hall of Fame. And, the general consensus after they won the championship in 2015 was that the 2015 team was George Brett said it on the stage. This is a more talented team. This is a better team.
That was a nice thing for him to say. I don't know that it's true.
Well, I actually think it is true in the sense, if you look at the 85 Royals roster, was deeply, deeply flawed. But if you look at the careers of the guys on the 85 Royals, I think you can make a case. Because, how many of those guys on the 85 Royals were on the 76 Royals, the first Royals play team? Brett and Frank White. Willie Wilson, I think, debuted in 76 or 77. Hell, John Wathan, I think, made an appearance in 85 and in 76. Like, the Royals were so talented, they had backups who could stick around in the major leagues for 10 years. So there is some of that. But I think in the moment, the 2015 team, Lorenzo Cain at his peak, like Willie Wilson probably had a better career overall, but Lorenzo Cain in 2015 was a better player than Willie Wilson.
Who was the 7th 85er?
Quisenberry?
Quiz, Gubicza, and Saberhagen were the pitchers.
Al McRae is the other
Al, that's
and Al's another example. Or talent-wise in 85, he was, by the end, he was, not playing against right-handers a ton because he was, was 30, 38 years old or something like that. But obviously his career, he was a much better player than Billy Butler. But Billy Butler in 2014 was almost Al McRae. In fact, he might have been better than Al McRae in 85, but that's just a matter of where they were in their careers. But let's look at that 85 team, or the 2015 team. Salvi's getting in. Gordon is already in. Hosmer and Moose, I think, are going to get in.
I don't think it's as easy as you think.
I don't think it'll be first ballot necessarily, but I think, again, the fact that they won a championship, I think they will get in. Right? It just may be 10 years from now. I don't know, but so be it. And Lorenzo Cain will get it. But even if all those guys get in, that's 5. All right. I don't think any of the pitchers do. Any of the starters certainly don't get it, right? The relievers might. But I don't think Giordano Ventura, he's on the ballot. We haven't really discussed him. And he was a good pitcher for 3 years. He wasn't great, and he didn't.
Giordano Ventura's not getting in.
Yeah. So we should at least mention him. Who else? Edinson Volquez, Danny Duffy, like none of the starters are getting in. It's just a matter of, do Holland, Davis, Herrera, any of those guys get in the long run? Maybe. Wade Davis was on the ballot last year, didn't get in. I don't know if any of them will ever get in, but I suspect with the fullness of time that 1 or 2 will. So we'll probably end up.
Do you think Eric Hosmer? We can have this debate in the future, but you really think he's going in?
Yes, I do. I think it won't be right away, but if you look at his career with the Royals, it is comparable to some of.
You think he deserves to be in? I think he probably will get in because I think I'm not, based on some of the voting I've seen before. There are some people, the ones that are voting anti-Beltran are going to vote pro Hosmer,
right?
And I think that'll be a mistake. Like I don't know.
I think he will get in. I don't think it'll be right away.
Beltran is utterly ridiculous, but
what I vote for him,
OPS for the Royals is going in.
To me, it's almost like it's partly the Wade Davis argument in the sense that without his postseason performance, it would be much, much more difficult to make a case. And with Hosmer, it's extra. It's extra tricky because his postseason numbers don't actually look that great. Like if you just look at his his numbers, he hit. Oh, I got to take out the San Diego numbers, but like 2015 when they won the World Series, he hit 212 in the playoffs. In 16 games, he hit 212 with a 288 slug. But in 16 games, he had 17 RBIs. That was the year he hit 600 in the playoffs with runners in scoring position and like 0-50 with nobody on base. So it's very much a situational argument, but he had so many postseason moments. I mean, not all of them at the plate, because obviously, he might have the second most famous base running play in Royals history after only Draw, Dice, and Steal, right? Like, I think those things will get Hosmer in. Moose is actually the one I'd probably be a little bit more concerned about. I mean, he gets some bonus points because he came back after free agency. He obviously he broke the Royals home run record as well. But he was not the postseason guy that Hosmer was. He was not quite as good in the regular season. So I could see a scenario where Hosmer gets in before Moustakas, but ultimately, I think those two are going to be joined at the hip in the minds of so many voters that I think in 20 years from now, I think both of them will be in. Yes.
Yeah. All right. We'll see. We'll see. We've got the same 5, so I feel good. My ballot is Rany approved. With what I put in. That makes me feel good.
No, I don't want it to go to your head too much. Sorry.
As Rany approved. I'm gonna take it. It's Rany approved. I will take it. Listen, if you like the Coffin Corner podcast, you can support our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Kansas City's best for more than 30 years. They've been solving parking lot problems. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Something as simple as striping, concrete bumper signage. They do that. Yes, building the parking lot from scratch. The biggest lots in Kansas City, no problem for Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. And if you've been hurt in an accident, text HURT. That's HURT, H-U-R-T, to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers serving Kansas City for more than 40 years, voted KC's #1 accident lawyers. It's Northland Injury Law. Again, text HURT to 22222 if you have a case. For the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman Corner